there's a real chance you're going to die from that. Welcome to Watching the Horizon. I'm Jake. Are you a nurse? Are you a doctor? Are you a medical professional? Are you trained in the arts of healing and medicine? Well, I'm sure there's quite a few of you out there, but chances are the majority of you are not. The reality is that in an SHTF situation, some of the most valuable skills that you can possibly have are going to be that of a medical nature. You know, right now in our society, even though it's super expensive, we enjoy top of the line medical care. And that includes access to medicine. And I'm just talking about stuff that you go pick up at the drugstore, the pharmacy. I'm not even talking about any of that super fancy, robotic surgery, Da Vinci, microscopic suturing. I mean, it's pretty amazing. But what else is amazing is that it wasn't even that long ago that if you were to get an injury, let's say you had a compound fracture of your leg, where the bone is poking through, or maybe it's definitely broken, it's pushing up against the skin. There's a real chance you're going to die from that. Of course, in this day and age, it's not a big deal. Well, it's a big deal, but the chances of you dying from such an injury are considerably less than what they would have been just, a couple generations ago. Imagine if there were no doctors available. Imagine if you did not have access to something as simple as penicillin. You injure yourself, and not even bad. Maybe you're scavenging for food, and you're something like a rock slips and you slip and you bang your knee real hard and you scuff it real good and you get a gash in your leg and you're bleeding. Do you know how to treat that? I mean, you probably wouldn't think about it. Let's say it didn't require stitches. Let's say it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that deep. But you're out in the middle of nowhere. It's not like it was a very sterile rock. Who knows what manner of animal or whatever, maybe, peed all over the place, or bugs or what have you. If that gets infected, there's a good chance you're going to die out there with no access to medical care. If it becomes septic, what are you going to do? You can prep for medical supplies. You can buy antibiotics if you know where you're going. If you know where to get them from, you can buy them legally. They don't have, the longest shelf life in the world, so you do kind of have to rotate them through. But in an SHTF situation, very simple and treatable and basic injuries that we don't even pay attention to today are going to cause you a lot of pain and misery before you die. And I think that there's going to be a lot of heartbreak and struggle when some sort of event occurs. There's probably going to be a lot of clamoring. There's probably going to be a lot of confusion in the early days, either of whatever event will cause it, and then in the immediate aftermath, people will act and conduct themselves in a way that they always have, which is in a way that they're used to having access to medical care. They will take risks just in normal everyday life, not thinking that what they're about to do is significantly more dangerous than what they anticipated. Let's say you're evacuating a city and you're on foot and you need to get down into a ravine, or you need to cross a steep piece of terrain. And, it looks a little iffy, but, you think you can make it. Hopefully it wouldn't be too bad. And so you go, and sure enough, something happens. You slip, you cut your arm on the way down, or you tumble. Maybe you fracture your arm or your hand or something, or, sprained ankle. Of course you don't want that, but you also don't have past experience of not having medical care available to you. So it didn't occur to you the severity of the situation should any of those minor injuries occur. You didn't realize that it was a death sentence. When in reality, what should have gone through your head was, that's a little iffy, and if something happens, there's no water nearby, there's no running water, I have no place to lay low, I have no place to, kind of mend and heal up before continuing on. You are on foot and you are on your way out of the city, and that's the most important thing right now. Well, if there's nobody like actively chasing you at that moment, it turns out that that is an unacceptable risk and not worth it. You should go around, because if something like that were to happen, if you didn't have the proper gear, if you weren't sufficiently trained, if you weren't used to operating in that type of terrain and environment, in a post-SHTF situation, you should have gone around. And that needs to be your mentality, that, oh, look, there's a drainage pipe with a big rusty grate on it. Let's go see if we can shake it loose and see what's in the pipe. Maybe we can use it for travel. Maybe there's, fish or something in there or whatever. And you just walk up and you grab that grate and you start trying to, well, what you didn't realize is it had some sharp metal on it, and you cut your hand real good. Now what? These are the things that now you need to just slow down and consider. All right, be very mindful, be very thoughtful, your current actions, the potential hazards, and how you're going to come back from that. What's the worst that can happen? You're going to see a metal grate, and instead of just thinking, oh, it's a metal grate, it doesn't even occur to you, because you've always had access to medical care, that there could be anything wrong with it, that there might be something that's going to jump up and bite you and you're not going to survive it because you can't go to the hospital. You're going to need to be a lot more cautious. Again, if you don't have an immediate threat behind you, if you're not in immediate danger, things like that, these stupid mistakes that you should have known better. I mean, you're going to be kicking yourself in the butt the whole time immediately after it happened. But once it's already happened, it might be too late. It's something to consider. It's something to think about. For your preps, having like an antibacterial. I know it's hard to get now. They've taken it off the shelves, the antibacterial soap. A lot of places, they're just not selling them anymore. But they're out there, and you know what? Probably worth getting a hold of some of that, just to sock it away. Nothing wrong with it. Get yourself some basic medical supplies, and you know what? Learn some first aid. And don't just stop at the absolute bare minimum like CPR. CPR is good, but CPR is only meant as a stopgap until actual medical professionals can arrive. I mean, if you're out in the middle of nowhere or during or immediately after an SHTF situation, there's no one to call. Performing CPR on somebody where there's no backup, there's no one going to come help. I mean, it's not like in the movies where you're performing CPR and they just like, they wake up and they kind of shake it off, and then everybody goes about their business. You do CPR just to keep the brain alive long enough for actual EMTs to show up to provide the next level up of care. But they're not the solution either. Depending on what the situation is or what you're suffering from, they're just designed to keep you alive and transport you to the hospital, where you're going to actually receive the bulk of your care. That's where they're going to have access to, all of the equipment, all of the medicines. So do you have that medical training? Do you have medical knowledge? Do you have that ability to treat? Can you not just patch up a broken leg, but do you know how to actually set it? Do you know what the long-term solution is? If you cut yourself real bad, or you got a foreign body stuck in your leg because maybe you got shot, or maybe there was you fell and a piece of wood, gouged you in the leg or something like that. It's real important to know, well, do you just go ahead and pull the stick out right away? or do you let it stay there until later, or what's the right answer? And if you need to get in there, what's the best process? Do you wash it all out and stitch it up and call it good, or do you need to wash it all out and then not stitch it up because it needs to drain? I mean, there's so many things, and if you're wrong, if you make the wrong decision, usually it's going to lead to a whole lot of pain and then death. So there you go. Anyway, something to be aware of, something to be considerate of. If you are not a medical professional, everyone talks about sort of finding one of these individuals and getting them involved in your group is sort of like the holy grail. So a medical-based prepper is sort of like the unicorn. Improve yourself. Take classes. Learn the knowledge. Get the skills. That way you've got at least something. That way when you're in the heat of a moment and you're making a decision about how you're going to proceed going forward, maybe you did that practice of how to suture a wound, using using pigskin or something like that, and just what's involved in making each stitch. And so you have that experience, in your mind as you're mapping your route down this terrain, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I don't want to do that. But then again, I don't know. Give me your thoughts. What do you think? What's that going to be like, medically speaking? Do you think it's going to affect you? Do you think there's any real good set of skills or preps that any one individual who's not a doctor or a nurse that they could have that would be sufficient? I'd love to know what you think. All right. Be sure to keep your eyes open. Not coffee.